I'm Monique,
And I'm Sandra.
and we're the Ballet Sisters.
This week we watched the first 4 episodes of Étoile, the new show that just recently came out about ballet companies. So stay tuned throughout this video. At the end, we're going to talk about our predictions of what's going to happen to all of the characters in the final 4 episodes of the season.
We watched Bunheads just recently, and we did a video on Bunheads. That was from 2012 by the same producers, the Palladinos, and it was more about like younger kids at dance school. So this is quite kind of a jump forward to professional dancers. But we were so excited when we found out kind of halfway through watching Bunheads that there was a new show coming out about professional dancers. So excited to watch this. Episode 1 kind of lays out the whole premise for the rest of the season, I think. That's a good way of putting it. What were your favorite characters, Sandra, that were like highlighted in that first episode there?
One character that I really enjoyed is Jack, the director of the New York Ballet Company. I love his neurosis a little bit, his craziness, his love for the arts, which you find out later is definitely passed down in his family. We're starting to hear a little bit about his history, his grandma, who was very big in the arts, his mother. And so I'm intrigued to find out more about his kind of story. So yeah, Jack is very was very interesting to me. I thought I would be more intrigued by the ballet dancers, which I am, but I'm also finding those that are not dancers to be interesting as well.
I was going to say about Jack too that I love that he's kind of part of this like New York City legacy family, because that's very New York
Yes.
City, that there are these people that are still present today that are really big in business or in the arts or whatever, that literally like have their great grandparents or their grandparents have buildings named after them. So that's very common, I think, in New York City. Like, I like that they took that, a lot of things actually in the show, a lot from kind of the inspiration of New York City.
And then, since we're talking about Jack, we have to talk about Genevieve. Love her Frenchness. Also, one thing that I love, her quirkiness of taking her shoes off all the time.
When she slides across the floor there, oh my god, I love that. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and gets like stopped by
that.
someone.
She does it all the time.
It's like she needs to take them off to be able to think. Like that's like
Yes.
she does that in
Yeah.
her office. I do remember that in her office one time she does that. Yeah. To me too, like she is such a, like to me in France especially too, like it's less about the like billionaire people or legacy or whatever, but it's almost like she's like a civil servant to France in a way, like being like an arts person, which again is very kind of European. It sounds like she's worked at like other arts organizations.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I'm just going to bring this up here too. We were both a little confused that first episode to be like, are they artistic directors? Because they say that Jack is an executive director, which is very different than an artistic director. And you
Yes.
kind of realize, like, oh, they're not the artistic directors, which I'm not really sure, like, who is in this show, or if they've just kind of, like, pretended that that doesn't exist. Kind of interesting, and maybe we'll get more clarification. I'm just a ballet nerd,
Yes.
so, yeah.
Yeah, we're ballet nerds, so we need to know everything. So let's talk about some of the dancers. Monique, who is your favorite dancer, or do you have a favorite yet?
I do love, we mentioned her in the trailer, Tyler Peck. She's the kind of like nervous girl who's walking around with her therapist all the time. That's Tyler Peck. She's a principal at New York City Ballet. Another one that's interesting is Robbie Fairchild. He plays, I think it's Larry. He plays Larry. So
Oh,
he's
Larry?
one, yeah. So yeah. But Robbie Fairchild actually quit his, like, again, he was a principal at New York City Ballet. He quit to act. Partly, I read that he was not happy with how dance and ballet was represented in TV and film. And so the
Love
fact that
that.
he's in this show, he must be so happy that he's like fulfilling his dreams and stuff. But anyways, he's an amazing dancer. Joy Womack is in this too. She's in the Paris company kind of thing. And Joy Womack, we came in contact with her in one of her other videos because she was a judge at Prix de la Sang this year.
Yes,
So
she
yeah,
was.
yeah. So just like seeing people, yeah, it's just fun to see all these different dancers. The main characters have dance doubles.
They do, which a lot of people probably don't know. I read that. Now I did read. Okay, so the one of the main character dancers is Cheyenne. She's very known. She's now in the United States, and I love her Europeanness. Not floundering, but her Europeanness is showing through. An example of her being so European in New York is when someone asks her if she needs a taxi or a ride, and she says, "Why? I have legs," because the Europeans walk everywhere. But she is a fantastic dancer, and she does do some of the dancing, some of the more complex or advanced dance. She has a double.
One of the things that they did is that they offered those dancers also a speaking role. So they're in the actual show too, kind of thing, as actual characters.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah, I recognize the girl from like she's one of the like three dancers that gets picked for Tobias's piece. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So they both got like speaking roles and a little bit more like acting work, as well as doing all the principal dancing.
The actress that plays Cheyenne, Lou Delage, I read that she did not speak a lot of English before doing this show. She's a French actress, and she was concerned a bit about doing this show because the Palladinos are known for their very fast dialogue and the banter between characters. So she was concerned about her English, but they worked with her, and I think she does fantastic. I would never know that English was something that she really struggled with because she did a great job.
They talk about COVID and like the kind of lost generation almost of dancers and stuff. And like I remember going through COVID and seeing these poor kids trying to, dance at home and keep up their ballet work and stuff, and how hard that was. And I wonder about those kids that were like ready to apprentice at a company or something, and like, whew, that's so hard to keep up that work during COVID. They talk a little bit about how that might have hurt people's kind of return to companies and stuff, and it did. There were some dancers that were unfortunately body shamed because they gained weight during COVID and stuff and were asked not to return. So, again, taking from real life into this show, I think is really smart. I think it highlights a lot of things maybe that other people don't know about the ballet world, and I just love how little moments like that, I'm like, oh, I know that happened and stuff. So yeah, it's just a neat way of like blending real and fiction. One of the characters that gets highlighted way more in episode 2 is Mishi. She is the younger dancer. She's from France. She goes to New York City, and then in this whole trade of dancers, she comes back to France. Her parents are interesting.
Yes.
Yes. They're like socialites, kind of, or like artists, socialites, something in New York, or in Paris, sorry, in France.
Her mother is the minister of like the arts or of culture. She's got a government position that is very, like you said, very high socially.
One of the first kind of notes I wrote about Mishi was love the character. She has a lot of promise, but the parents are not supporting what she needs to like fulfill her promise in dance. And we talked a little bit about how we kind of saw, I don't know, different aspects of Mishi in a way.
My initial thoughts with Mishi was a little bit of a spoiled brat, but then you learn more about what her parents are like and her relationship with her parents. And I feel over those 4 episodes that we learn more about that, and to the point where she ends up not wanting to be in the home with her parents. There, it sounds like was a lot of pressure to be a ballerina, although our understanding is she's very good. but there's a lot of pressure. There's not a lot of parenting happening.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of like holding her up, like, oh, look at our daughter. She's amazing. We're having a party for her and stuff. And all the girl wants to do is like hang out with her dog and probably have her parents like cuddle up on the couch and watch a movie with her or something. So it's like they kind of put her on display, but they don't actually parent or speak to her or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Yeah.
A spoiled brat was kind of my thought, but I don't think she is. I think she's starved for attention from her parents, but the right kind of parental attention, not what they've been giving her.
One of the first scenes you see her in, which I think is episode 1, yeah, because she's in New York City. Um, there's a point where like they're gonna cancel a rehearsal or something because the person's hurt or something that's supposed to be doing the piece, and Mishi speaks up and she says, "I know that part too," which is an amazing thing to do as a dancer. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you will definitely get picked if you know all the parts. And she essentially says that I know all the parts in this ballet. She wasn't told to learn them. She wasn't an apprentice or anything. She just took it on herself, which like that's where you're gonna get amazing things happening in your dance
Yeah.
career. So to me, like she obviously loves what she does and puts in a lot of work to it, but there's something that's like, yeah, it's just sad that she seems to be like getting further in her dance career because of her parents, not because of people seeing her for the amazing dancer she is. And if she had maybe
Yeah.
different parents, she would be like another dancer, maybe in the crowd kind of, but at the same time it would be like she was worth it. Like the work that she put in is what got her there, not her parents.
Yeah, and I think there's some animosity with the other dancers with her. You can kind of see that in the scene where she comes into the Paris Ballet Company's rehearsal. She has come back to Paris, and just the reactions of a lot of the other dancers to her.
Which I'm sure they assume that like her parents did this and whatever, and that's the only
Yeah.
reason she's here and stuff. Um, I was gonna note, I told this to Sandra earlier, and she was like, "Oh, that makes sense now." So when Mishi comes back to Paris, she's walking through the class. They're all at bar, and she's like trying to find a spot at the bar, right? And she finally finds this tiny spot, and they're about to start class, and she faces the bar, right? Head on faces the bar. And the guy behind her is facing sideways, as you often do in class, right? Face sideways at the bar. And he just says to her, "This is Paris, not New York." Because New York, or a lot of classes that I take for ballet, you start facing the bar and you do like a warm up for your feet, right? Before you even do plies, tendus, anything else. Apparently, they don't do that in Paris. I think it's a bit more traditional or whatever, right? In New York City Ballet, their feet are quite in, like their movements are really fast, and I imagine you really do need a warm up for your feet when you're doing all that quick balancing petit allegro and stuff like that. So yeah, so I clocked that little moment to be like, oh yeah,
That
I know
moment.
what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An interesting part of Cheyenne is that she chooses Gael as her partner, who has a bit of a history with the ballet company and the director of the company, where they do not want him. And he doesn't necessarily want it either. So he obviously is a very talented dancer that has chosen to pursue other interests in his life, which is an interesting twist to a dancer because most dancers, their whole world is dance. So
Yes.
Gael is a fun character to watch.
Mm-hmm.
He We meet him working at a farm stand in the middle of nowhere, and it is so Palladino.
Yeah.
It's very Gilmore Girls. It's very
Very fun.
bunheads. This young man working at a farm stand that is actually a very good dancer. And I love the Gael character because he's very good at dance, but he doesn't have that like extreme drive to do
Yeah.
everything dance. I love that they've tied in a young dancer into this show. So it's not all just professional dancers. We are introduced to a young girl named Susu, and I love her storyline so far.
So
She's
sweet.
a very sweet young um, dancer who just dances. She doesn't has never taken classes. And if you've watched the show, you know kind of her story. But I'm excited to learn more about her relationship with Cheyenne
Hmm.
and her progress in the or the company's school.
I found too like the scenes of her dancing in this like dark studio in New York City, and you can see all the lights outside in New York and stuff, and it's just like it was just such a beautiful scene, her scenes when she's dancing at night. So yeah, beautiful like cinematography and stuff. Yeah. Episode 3 kind of brings in some themes from New York City. I feel like there's kind of the new and old money like conflict, which again is a very New York City thing. New money, a lot of people that have made money in the last 20 years or so want,
Yeah.
their name on a building and stuff, and yet there's a lot of old money in New York City too. Um, it was funny, I was thinking, because Crispin, who's this billionaire that's funding this whole project with both companies and stuff, he wants his name on this theater, and I was thinking that like names are one thing, but one thing I used to work at a theater in Toronto, the Pantages Theater. It got renamed to the Canon Theater, as in Canon cameras, and I'm like, that's even worse. I find is when things are named after big corporations. I just don't feel
Yes.
like the arts and big corporations like that should go together. But anyways, yes, just an aside for me. Um, but yeah, I really like this episode because I think it shows Jack is really pulled in a bunch of directions. I think this is the one too where he's got the board meeting. Like he's just getting pulled in so many different things. Even Cheyenne like introduces Susu, and he's like, what? Now this is happening too at my like theater? Like there's children here at night dancing on their own. Like he's just so done with everyone kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And he goes back to his office late at night and he watches a bunch of dance videos, almost like VHS. Like it's on this little tiny TV in his office and stuff. And to me, after he watches these clips, it's like he remembers what's really important, which is just the
Yes.
ballet, right? All the champagne glasses that are etched and the bored people that want this and the little girl that dances. It's like it doesn't matter. It's the ballet that matters. It's the dance. It's the art form. That's what matters, and I love that. And he goes down and tells Susu's mom that she can dance and like he'll put her in the school and stuff. So it's a really sweet moment to me that he reminds himself why he's doing this and what's really important.
I loved the clips that he had. We recognized a lot of famous dancers. In those clips, they're fast and it's hard to see who they are. Obviously, there was the clip of Baryshnikov from White Nights and the movie
Yes.
White Nights. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Amazing dancing. And there was a pas de deux that they show, and it was hard to see who they were. I thought it was Fontaine and Nureyev.
Sandra mentioned White Nights, and that there's a clip from Baryshnikov in that movie. And there's a point in, I think it was episode 1, where Cheyenne's dancing on her own in a studio, and the camera's kind of following her as she dances. And I was like, oh, this is White Nights. Like, there is a scene that's exactly like that. And I felt like it was kind of an homage to this, like, amazing ballet movie that's held up to the test of time and we all love.
The way that White Nights, that one scene, that famous scene from White Nights, uh, is filmed, is the way they
Hmm.
filmed her.
If you're watching clips from White Nights, make sure to watch the scene with Gregory Hines and Baryshnikov together because that will blow your mind. Yes, yes.
Blow your mind.
Yeah, yeah. And the casual 11 pirouettes that Baryshnikov does too.
Casually, Baryshnikov does 11 pirouettes and then lands it beautifully.
Episode 4 was probably my favorite of those first 4 episodes just because partly it has a ton of dancing. Both companies do their first big gala of the season, and to realize that is real life too, right? That's a theater full of dancers on stage plus all the audience, and that was filmed, and just the amount of extras, dancers, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, the dancing was just so amazing. I love the one in Paris where like all the dancers come out, including the little kids, which again I feel like is a very Paris thing.
I found that very interesting. I was like, are they just going to walk on? But I feel like that's a traditional thing that they do, and I've never seen that before.
I feel like it must be like a tradition there that like they present all the dancers kind of in a way.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, because I don't think that's like something I've seen at North American companies
No,
do.
I
So
found.
No, I kind of thought it was interesting. Yeah, and I loved the final scene where they're all on the stage and the kids and the yeah, loved it.
I love the scene where you're kind of going back and forth between rehearsals with Tobias and Gabon in Paris, and then rehearsal with Gael and Cheyenne in New York City, and just how they kind of counter each other in a way. And yeah, I love that little clip of them going back and forth
Yeah.
between those rehearsals. Yeah, I wrote down, was Jack ever a dancer? No, I don't think he was, but
I don't
I think
think
we've
so.
gotten over that now.
Was Genevieve? I don't know. I don't think so
I
either.
don't think so either. No, I don't think, unless like as a kid or something, but like not
Yeah.
as, yeah, professional. No.
Yeah.
I feel like they're kind of like art admin lifers. You know what I
They
mean?
work
Like
the
art
arts in their
administration
lives.
essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Did you find it interesting how they put the like the name of the piece, the choreographer, and like where did that come
Yes.
from?
At first, first of all, it goes by really fast. I should have paused them every time, but it took about two or three times before I realized kind of what was happening. So if it was because there was one, I don't know what piece it was, but I noticed choreographer was Marius Petipa.
I think it was a
Um,
black. It was the Black Swan. Tyler Peck did
the Black
a part
Swan.
of the
That's
Black
right.
Swan. Yeah, yeah.
But then they would the dancers were the characters.
Christopher Wheeldon is a real choreographer that is like choreographing right now. Like
Yes.
yeah, and like he's worked for New York City Ballet, he's probably done things in Paris, he's done things all over the place. He's very, very highly regarded choreographer at the moment. So it was interesting to kind of see his name, but then see the characters' names and like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was really fantastic that they acknowledged the choreographers.
I was going to mention that the choreographer that's kind of worked with the Palladinos for a long, long time. So she choreographed all the stuff in Bunheads. Her name's Marguerite Derricks, and she is choreographing all the pieces that are like supposed to be by Tobias, essentially. So he's the choreographer character. So she's
Right.
choreographing all that stuff. One thing I was going to say about this episode too is I love that Tobias and Cheyenne end up like bumping into each other, whatever, and it's like, oh, the two crazies have met. Oh, of course they speak the same language. Oh, of course they like get along and understand each other and stuff. So I just thought it was funny when like they kind of come together and you think, ooh, is this gonna work? And then after a few minutes, it's like, oh, of course they get along. Of course they
Of
understand each other.
course.
Nobody else understands them, but they understand each other.
I mean, Tobias is the Tobias character is so fun. He's that neurotic choreographer, which I think you've worked with some of them, Monique. I've worked with some pretty out there neurotic choreographers as well when I was living in
Yes.
Toronto and going to the theater school in Toronto. Um, Quite often when Tobias is on the screen, it reminds me of that one choreographer who will remain nameless that I did a show with and not quite as much as Tobias, but definitely similar.
Yes. I feel like I had a choreographer that, oh, it was confusing. He choreographed this whole piece where essentially he would improvise in front of us and we'd have to try and follow him. And then after a few minutes, he'd turn around and go, what did I do? We'd have to show him what he did, essentially. And then he decided that the whole kind of idea of this piece was that you do the whole dance piece like forward. And then he would get us to do the same little dance like parts or whatever backwards. Like, not like saute whatever. It'd be like, if you do this, you have to do this now. Like completely like you're hitting rewind on the VHS, right? So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. So and he reminded me a little bit of Tobias for sure, for sure.
That's
Yes,
crazy.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like those types of people, it's like they are living and breathing art 24/7 and they don't function well in the world but except in like their art form.
They have great vision. And they have, and in the end, when it all works out, it's perfectly beautiful.
It's that moment where I feel like every dancer's dealt with this at some point. You're in a room, the choreographer's standing at the front, they're moving a little bit, and you're like, should I be learning what they're doing? But they're not speaking to you, you know? And it's like, what's happening? Can you
Yeah,
just
should I
communicate
learn
with
this?
us?
Talking about from my past, I remember I just recently went through some of my old things from the theater school that I went to, and she was similar in that she would do things and then not know what she did. So we would have to show her what she'd done. And then at one point through rehearsals, she kept changing it or telling us we were doing it wrong, which is very, very much common in choreographers, where we all knew we weren't doing it wrong, but she felt we were.
What do you think is going to happen to Susu?
My prediction for Susu is based on kind of what happened in the fourth episode, where she actually approaches Cheyenne and asks Cheyenne not to point her out in classes, which is very mature of her for a young girl. She doesn't want to be special. She doesn't want to be different. She wants to blend in. She wants to make friends, is what she says. And having very sweet, and having Cheyenne coming in, the famous ballerina, and there's a scene where she is being a very strong mentor with her. So I think what's going to happen, my prediction with Susu is she's going to kind of come into her own and be a little more independent, maybe be for her to even approach Cheyenne and say, please don't do that is pretty impressive. So I think maybe Susu will bring a little softness to Cheyenne.
What about Mishi too? Like we've talked a bit about Mishi and just her parent issues. She is now staying with Cheyenne's mom, which was a plot point.
Again, someone coming into their own. I think Mishi is going to become more independent from her parents, uh, have a little bit more of a voice of her own, and make her own decisions. I think. So, Monique, you have a prediction for Tobias and Gabon.
Yes.
Gabon.
I'm predicting that Gabon and Tobias get together, become a romantic, meet cute couple, whatever. There were
Yeah.
a few moments like when Gabon's trying to get him to come to the photo shoot that's happening on the roof or whatever. And I'm like, oh, you want him to come for more reasons than just looking good or whatever. And then there's another moment where Gabon's kind of mad at Tobias, and Tobias just gives him that look. Tobias kind of looks deep into Gabon's eyes and is like, I see you, I'm here. Like I get what's going on here, kind of thing, and I'm for it too. So yeah, it just made me go ooh fun. I feel like predictions for Jack and Genevieve are kind of, I don't know, like I don't know if major things will happen with them, in a way,
I mean,
like as personal characters,
yeah.
not just kind of like representing their companies.
I think Jack and Genevieve are currently adversaries, but I think that might soften a bit over the season as well. Will they become a little more
I
friends?
feel like there's like more conflict to come, but they kind of thrive in those moments of conflict sometimes,
Yes.
right? So yeah. That's kind of our wrap up of the first 4 episodes there. Yeah. And our predictions. What do you guys think? What do you think is going to happen next? What did you think about the first 4 episodes? Who's your favorite character, etc., etc.?
We love to hear from you guys. I may be constantly checking to see if anybody's commented, so please be the one that makes my day. We'll see you soon when we tell you how we felt about the next 4 episodes. And then we have lots of fun stuff coming up in the future. We're going to do some vlogging of a dance competition we're going to together. So you will see us together in one frame.
We live in different cities. I don't know if we ever mentioned that.
Monique is coming to my city, and we will be spending a week together at a dance competition. So please like or subscribe to be able to watch that.
See you guys soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.